This is Neil King for Random Acts of Cartooning, and I'm out there sketching again at the Natural History Museum in Philadelphia. But first, okay, everybody, so the influence for this episode is the Legion of Superheroes, and I was a big fan of this growing up. This was 70s and 80s, and I think I even went into the 90s. But I don't know if I really went that much further. So the big artist of the time that I got on board one was Mike Grell. Very specific, elongated, kind of worked with Neil Adams. You can see that kind of style with it. And then Keith Giffen was another one that really in the 80s that I followed. Different style completely. The thing I always loved as a kid about the Legion of Superheroes was where they they got together. Like they had these very specific types, their Legion Hall or the Legion headquarters. And I always loved what they did with it. It reminds me of going to museums where they would have these big, unbelievable architecture to show different things, where they would have these meetings and people would come up and people who would wanted to be in the Legion would come to do this. But I thought it always just reminds me of different things about that. But I love this Mike Grell style, very dynamic. He did a lot of work that I used to follow for different comics that he's done. But once you see a Mike Grell image, you're always looking for the perspective and the elongation and the foreshortening of the characters when you're seeing all this stuff. This is a nice old book, huh? But the headquarters is a big thing, and like even characters. This is not Mike Grell, but every time that they would meet together, I just love the meeting boardrooms. And for a kid, I'm sure that was a big draw of it. These are supposed to be younger characters, and there's lots of them, so you would have your favorites. I always loved that part about it. Legion of Superheroes. Keith Giffen, completely different style. But I loved all his detail and all the things. But what he kept about the book was all that futuristic stuff. You knew they lived in this place, and all the things that they would find out about whatever the crimes are, whatever supervillain was coming around, they would be involved in it. But I love the way that they really kind of understood within the techniques that different techniques they have, of what might draw a kid to really like a book. And one of the things that I do really love about it is all that different styles together. But every time I go to a formal place like a museum and everything, it reminds me of this, or Hall of Justice and all the different things, like any kind of headquarters that comics used to have. I always envision it, especially when I go to something that has dinosaur bones and things like that. Legion of Superheroes. Mike Grell specifically. Look at the figures. They're just so great. Okay, here we are in this spectacular museum, Natural History Museum in Philly. And I go often over the years to draw different stuff, and especially because they have all the dinosaurs and things like that. So I brought my sketchbook, and I've been doing lots of stuff, traveling and everything with it. So I did a video of going to Belize. So, in my traveling sketchbook, these are the kind of things I like to do. I'll go to museums and I'll pick something out to draw. So I brought my Bic pen with me, and it's my typical spiral-bound sketchbook. And I'm just trying to get in there right away with some of my basic shapes, because again, I'm at a distance with this specific dinosaur because it's so huge. So when I'm looking at something like this, I realize that right away that I'm either going to crop off some of it because in this case, the tail is really, really long. So for me, I'm not so worried about getting it all in there. But to me, it's a big triangle I'm kind of working with. I barely kind of put that in. And I just kind of go at it, trying to get some of the details. Now you can see this is my viewpoint of what I'm looking at. Lots of people around. As you can see, it's just there are lots of little details, and the hard thing is, especially from a distance, you really want to focus in on the really darkest areas because you can miss a lot of stuff when it's far away like this. But it's still such a huge image. And, you go to museums and you just are sometimes, you can be overwhelmed by some of the different things that are there for the scale of everything. So when you're drawing a dinosaur, in the back of your head, you have to just keep saying, like, it's really up there. So it's at least probably 15, 20 feet tall. So for me, I'll eventually try to put it into perspective where you'll see a little bit of the background. And once you have some background and maybe a person or two around it, you'll get a better idea of the scale. Because there could be, like an image like this from a distance, it looks like it could be a skeleton from a lot of things until you get to kind of the tail and how it kind of works off of it. It could be something small. It could be a reptile. It could have been like some kind of a bird image. But by putting it into scale eventually with people around it or a little architecture around it, it'll allow you to give the viewer with a sketch a little bit of a sense of how big the thing is. So what I'm doing now is I'm just looking at how long the neck is compared to where the rib cage is, and then the backbone and all those scales and separate ribs and all types of things are there. So for me, once I kind of lay in the basic part, then I'm trying to get a little detail. But again, it's a distance. If I like to get really close to some of these things, to get real close shots of the heads or of certain parts of the body, and I'll do different types of sketches like that. But for this one, I thought I would do most of the figure and see kind of where and what I can get from that. So whether it's this part of the shoulder and it's coming down, I'm kind of comparing it in my head to the size of the actual head of the dinosaur. So when you come down on this, and I'm thinking about all the shading and the shadows, but I'm also trying to say, where does that arm begin compared to the neck, or where does the head start compared to the top of those spikes on the back. I'm speeding this up a little bit so you can still see it, but instead of just kind of going through it slower. Again, I'm just trying to get the consecutive kinds of parts to those back pieces to, you can't imagine how the skin and everything would relate to all of this. What a huge animal this was. But again, I'm just looking at it and keeping my eye on, especially the rib cage, like how wide it is compared to how tall, and still seeing through to the ribs that would have been behind it. And that can be an interesting thing, and where they'll stop and start, and it is a sketch, so I am trying to just make sure that that for me, that most of the parts to the legs like this, or how they attach, that they're kind of it's pretty accurate. You want to keep looking and don't let the cartoonist in yourself take over and want to simplify it so that you could kind of move on to the next part. Okay, as you know, I am a working cartoonist, and here are some of the things that I've worked on that's in my Amazon store. There's a link that I have on this episode. The Deep End, Spaghetti Eddie with meatball eyes, and My Parents Are Ninjas are all like little samples of an all ages books that I've done. Lots of fun, all kinds of antics that these kids will go through, but lots of fun little read, and they are all available there. And as always, I do sketches and commissions. I'm doing them all year long, as well as going to conventions to sell also. They're a lot of fun to do, and I've had lots of people reach out to me interested in getting these types of sketches, and I'll do them. Okay, back over here at the museum. And this is just spectacular, the image that is here. There were lots of little kids that were around while I was drawing, and to hear them, and it's such a unique experience for little kids to go and see this kind of a thing. And I think that we're all kind of drawn to museums because a lot of times we were lucky enough, or I know I was lucky enough as I was growing up to go to some museums, and then my own girl was growing up, that we would bring her to these types of places, and this was a great one in Philly, and if you ever get a chance to go to it, it's just a great opportunity to bring the kids, and there's lots of educational programming and all that kind of stuff. They can go and they can get involved in different things, lots of classes and things, but great museum. Always have enjoyed my visits there, and the staff is always really great, but school groups go through all the time. So when I was there for this one, there were like 3 or 4 little groups of very little kids. They seemed like they were maybe in 2nd or 3rd grade. But sometimes I'll see high school groups, and I've taught before, and I would bring some of my high school groups in to just draw. And they have the dioramas with the different animals, and I'll do a video with one of those soon enough. But these are kind of things that I do really love drawing, like to come in and draw this type of a creature is just, what a great opportunity to do it. Okay, I'm speeding this up again for this section. At this point, I am trying to keep an eye on what's going on around the dinosaurs. So I feel like I've gotten most of the major parts in, and once that happens, you can either just kind of go in there and refine every little part of it, or what I like to do in certain sketches is to kind of put it into perspective, like where are the surroundings, and what are the different things that would give a viewer, if they're going to look at this sketch, a sense of what's around that thing and how big this specific one is. So I'm putting in some of these columns. There's another dinosaur that's right next to it. So I thought I would put a slight indication of that. Now, when you're doing something like this, again, my graphic designer part is always there in my head, is not allow that image to be overwhelming to the point that it takes over the one that you're doing. Like the main focus of this is the larger dinosaur there. So I really want to make sure that that when I have something to compare it to, especially like the ground level and kind of how these dinosaurs are displayed, that the viewer gets a little sense of that. So I'm bumping up the line a little bit with my main dinosaur, and then just still going in and being like, all right, this is how big a person would be. And people were going and getting close to them and walking around them. But once you put that figure in, a child and an adult, then it's easier to figure out that how colossally huge these kind of things are when you see them. So I'm just kind of going in, giving a little darkness in the back, some hatches. Just again, not to overwhelm and not to overpower that, the design of the whole thing. And this is what's so great about sketches. If I was here on a regular day, I might do, 2 or 3 of these different dinosaurs, or go to a different gallery in the museum and draw something else. This specific one, I drew this, and then there was one of a much closer image that I'll display maybe for my next video, because I used watercolors for that one. But I really love drawing with my pen, and you get a certain amount of finished quality to it without having to overpower it, and it's not as messy as having pencil around all the time when you're traveling. And unless it's raining or something, a pen, especially these Bics, are just perfect to be able to go around and get as close as you want to things, and just have your book and have your pen, and you don't have to carry a lot. Unless, of course, you're filming it for random acts of cartooning. Then you have a tripod and you walk around. And so that's one of the things I have there above me that you can't quite see. You can see the shadow on the sketchbook of the arm that's holding my phone that I'm doing there. But I feel like it was another successful trip to Natural History Museum, and get over there if you live in the area. But remember to like and subscribe, and thanks for tuning in.